The first thing to learn in the game of pool is the fundamentals, what they are and how they work. The reason why it's important to have a very solid foundation is because if you notice, there are a lot of people out there that say, I just had the best day of my career. I couldn't miss a ball if I tried. I beat my opponent 7-1, 7-2. I can't wait to go home, go to sleep, come back the next day and do it again. Then when they come back the next day, they're scratching their head, wondering why is it that they play like a champion the previous day and play like a zombie the very next day. The reason for that is because every once in a while they're fortunate enough to have everything come together and work perfectly. The problem is they are unaware of what those are. They don't have the ability to duplicate it on a daily basis. So it's very, very important to understand how the fundamentals work, what they are, how they work, and try to establish what I call a pre-shot routine. So that way you can use it again, shot after shot, day after day. So the secret is to make sure that you first line up the shot by lining up your cue stick to the intended aim point on the object ball. I'm assuming everyone here knows what the object ball is. If you do not know, the ball that you're trying to hit is the object ball, and the white ball, the cue ball, is the cue ball, obviously. So what you're doing is you're lining up the cue stick in a dead straight line, making sure that your right foot, this is assuming you're a right-handed player, is right underneath the cue stick. The reason for that is because it's important to learn how to sight the ball perfectly by keeping your chin above the cue stick. And the way to do that is by keeping your right foot underneath, because your chin will always follow your right foot. Because if you notice, if I put my right foot here, it becomes, look how difficult it becomes for me to put my chin over the stick. I'm struggling here. Whereas if I put it on the opposite side of the cue, same thing here. I have to bend my body this way in order to put my chin over. Whereas again, if I put my foot right underneath the cue stick, I have the ability to put my chin right over the cue ball. It's very, very important. I can't tell you enough how important that is. Second thing is to make sure that when you make a bridge, this is how you make a bridge, and feel more than free to put your hand on the table if you want to try it. The best way to form a bridge is to make a fist, just like this, put your thumb right next to your knuckle, and keep it as high as possible. While doing that, make sure that you put the fist flat on the table, just like that. Now, by keeping the thumb as high as possible and maintaining the knuckles up in the air, spread your fingers out like that. See that? So don't lower down the knuckle by going like that, because now if you do that, the thumb will separate from your knuckle. Okay? So make sure, again, make a fist, put the thumb as high as possible, right next to the knuckle, and while keeping the knuckles up in the air and the thumb up in the air, spread your fingers out like that. There you go, you almost got it, buddy. That's it, that's perfect. That's perfect, yep, you got it. So by doing it that way, you create a little, excuse me for a second. You want to make sure that you create a little groove right here to put the cue stick, whereas if your thumb goes down, now it's impossible to keep that cue there, and that's why a lot of players struggle in the beginning. So again, you want to keep the thumb as high as possible. Another mistake that I see players make is they twist their wrist to their left. Anytime you twist it to the left, the tendency is to have the thumb go away from the knuckle. So they end up shooting like that. So if anything, you want to twist your wrist to the right. And by twisting it to the right, you have a nice little groove. So let's see everyone put their cue on the groove like they just created. That's perfect. Have you guys done this before? Everyone's doing it perfectly. That's great. So the second thing is the stroke, and to figure out how that works. The key is, once this cue stick is about to strike the cue ball, it's important to make sure that your arm, your right arm, is pointing straight down to the floor. The reason for that is to make sure if you hold the cue stick too far up, the problem is you will always come short on the stroke and the follow through. And therefore you limit the amount of power that you're transferring onto the cue ball. So what happens is when you develop that bad habit, the tendency is to lunge forward with your body for power. And once you start lunging forward, you lose the ability to deliver that cue stick in a straight line. All right, so you want to make sure that, and everything depends on the height of a person, how short their arms are. If you had, let's say I had shorter arms, then this is where I'm holding the cue. But it's still pointing straight down to the floor. It's at a 90-degree angle, just like that. But I have longer arms, so in order to keep that arm perpendicular to the floor, I need to go back here. Anyone have any questions about that? Okay, good. Now the third thing is stepping into the shot. What you want to do, again, put your right foot underneath the stick, your left foot at about roughly a 45-degree angle from the cue stick. Then once you set your bridge on the table, you should always keep your fingertips anywhere from 6 to 8 inches. Why? Because you need enough room to generate speed by the time that cue stick reaches a cue ball. Because what I see a lot of people do is they put their bridge hand too close, and you will never generate as much speed going from here to there as you can going from here to there. It's like going to a martial arts class and trying to knock someone out with a 2-inch punch. It's not going to happen. You need some distance in order to build up that momentum, okay? So now, the next step is to make sure that as you're stroking the ball, when the cue tip is right here, you're looking at the cue ball and looking at the cue stick to make sure that it's lined up correctly to the intended aim point. Then when you bring it back here, your eyes should always shift to the object ball to make sure that you're sighting it correctly. Then the cue ball, object ball, cue ball, object ball, and then the object ball is the last thing that you look at when you make that final delivery. But more importantly, what I did there is I made sure that when I came back before I made the final delivery, I came back nice and slowly and paused for about a second before I went forward with speed. The biggest mistake players make with their stroke is when they come back too quickly, not realizing that when they come back too quickly with their right arm, the tendency is to have the right side of your body tighten up. Therefore, you end up with a shorter stroke. So for example, if you end up coming here, right, and you're coming back nice and slowly, then you go forward again, you have no problem hitting the ball with power. But what happens is if you come back too quickly, notice how by coming back too quickly, I lose the ability to bring the cue stick all the way back to my fingertips. So now instead of coming all the way back here and generating all that speed before I hit the ball, I'm only going from here to there. It's the same as having the bridge here and shooting that way. So what happens is most players don't realize that also when you tighten up your grip or your wrist, you lose the ability again to send that cue stick in a straight line. So what's going to happen is, depending on the individual, your cue stick will either sway to the left or to the right. So what happens, you see this line that separates the wood from the cloth right here? Notice how I'm keeping my cue stick in a dead straight line, going back and forth, 1, 2, 3, come back slowly, stroke. I had no problem keeping that cue stick in a straight line, but notice how loose my wrist is. In other words, if you had the ability to lift your cue stick off your bridge, you're holding that stick way too tight. Right now I'm trying to lift it up and I can't. So what happens is if I go ahead and do the same exact thing, but I go ahead and I rush my last stroke and bring the stick only up to here, watch what happens to my cue stick. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now notice how the stroke goes off. And that's why a lot of players miss shots, especially when they're shooting a shot that requires power. All right, any questions about that? I want everyone to try this for a second, even if you don't have a cue stick. I want you to put your arm just like this and make believe you're stroking the ball and come back nice and slowly and then go forward, right? You're going to notice something. Then come back again nice and slowly and then go forward again. You see how nice and loose you are? Now stop right here for a second and then come back as quickly as you possibly can. Notice as soon as you come back quickly, the right side of your body tightens up naturally. So now you're fighting yourself to go forward. Because the secret to the stroke is all you're simply doing is you're transferring the weight of the stick plus the speed of your arm onto the cue ball. Once you do that, the cue stick will follow through and come to a complete natural stop by itself on its own. When I shoot a shot, I don't say to myself, this is a follow through. If you want power, you must follow through. It's like any sport. No one's going to hit a home run hitting the ball like this and stopping the bat right there dead on its tracks. You have to follow through. So the thing is, if I'm here and this is a spot and I'm shooting this ball, notice how far my cue stick goes past that spot where the cue ball is. That's how far I go. On average, when I watch my students, this is what they do. They either stop there or they hit it and pull the cue stick back. The only way you can stop it there or pull it back is if you tighten the right side of your body and you rush the last stroke. So you need to make sure that if you want to hit the ball with power or soft, it doesn't matter. Just keep in mind that the harder you hit the ball, the longer the follow through. The softer you hit it, the shorter the follow through. So if, for example, I want to shoot this ball with so little speed that the ball barely makes it into the pocket, instead of bringing the cue stick back all the way here and going forward and trying to slow the stick down, I'm only going to come back 1 or 2 inches. Why? Because I'm trying to limit the amount of power that I'm transferring onto the cue ball. So I'm going to come back 1, 2, notice it's only 2 inches, 3, 4, pause, hit it soft. So remember, the softer you hit it, the shorter the follow through. The harder you hit it, the longer the follow through. But at no point in time am I ever stopping the cue stick intentionally. Again, I'm letting the cue stick come to a complete natural stop.